Hello, and thank you for stopping by. My name is Vivi Kachi, and today I am crocheting to another Grimm Brothers story. I am also starting on the second part of my plush room, so I am a bit excited about that. The story for today is titled The Golden Bird, and it is one of the lengthy ones, but I certainly don't mind. So without further ado, let us begin. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 sons in a beautiful garden with a tree that grew golden apples. Every day the apples would be counted as they ripened and as they were precious to the king. But one day an apple was missing. The king was upset and ordered for a watch to be kept around the tree at night. For the first night, the king's eldest son held vigil under the tree, but could not stay awake when midnight arrived. In the morning, one more apple was discovered missing. On the second night, the middle prince kept watch, but just like his elder brother, he lacked the resolve to keep awake past midnight. Another apple was lost. When the youngest son offered to keep watch on the third night, the king attempted to dissuade him, for he believed that the youngest would not succeed when his brothers had already failed. However, the youngest was steadfast and full of resolve, so the king relented. The third son kept watch under the tree and vowed not to let sleep overtake him. After midnight came, the young man remained awake and true to his vow. And then he saw a golden flash fly above him into the apple tree. It was a bird with golden feathers. He fired an arrow into the tree, but was only able to hit the bird's plumage, which caused one of the feathers to fall to the ground, and the bird flew off with one more apple. When the youngest son brought the feather to his father, the king called his council together. Together they concluded that the golden feather was worth more than an entire kingdom. With one feather being so valuable, I must and will have the whole bird, the king declared. The king sent his eldest son out on the quest to find the golden bird. When the prince came to the edge of the forest next to his father's kingdom, he found a strange fox waiting there. When he aimed his gun at the fox, the animal jumped. "Please, if you spare me, I will give you good counsel," the fox pleaded. The elder prince lowered his weapon, and the fox continued. "You are on a quest to find the golden bird, and this evening you will come to a village with 2 taverns that face each other. One tavern will be brightly lit, with plenty of merriment carrying on in there. Do not pay it any mind. Instead, stay in the other tavern, even though it would appear completely uninviting to you." But the prince thought to himself, "How could a mere animal give any useful advice?" And he shot at the fox, but the clever animal dodged the missile and escaped into the forest. He continued on his path and came upon the village that the fox described. The young man saw the 2 taverns that faced each other, and looked to the lively and merry one of which he was warned. "This tavern looks so inviting. Why would I ever stay in that dismal building across from it?" And he entered the merry tavern, where he lived in luxury and forgot all about his father, the bird, and all good counsel. When the elder son did not return, the middle son was sent on the quest for the golden bird. When he got to the edge of the same forest as his older brother, he finds the same fox and receives the same advice as his brother, but just like his brother, the middle son disregards it And when this prince came to the village with the 2 taverns, he saw his brother calling out to him to join the merriment of the brightly lit tavern, and so he joined the elder prince in his current revelry. When the second prince did not return, the youngest volunteered to go on the quest. The king would not allow this at first, saying, "It would be of no use. He would not be any more likely to succeed where his brothers had failed, and if fortune befell him, I do not believe he would have the wisdom to help himself." However, when there was no peace to be had with the youngest prince, the king relented. When the young man came to the edge of the forest, just as his brothers had done, he found a fox cautiously waiting there. Once again, the fox pleaded not to be harmed and spoke of the village with the 2 taverns. "Be calm, little fox. I mean you no harm," the prince assured. "Thank you. You will not regret it," the fox replied. "Sit on my tail, and I will take you there directly." When the prince had done as instructed, the fox bolted through the forest, going so swiftly that the wind whistled in their ears until they came upon the village with the 2 taverns. After bidding the fox farewell, the young man, who heeded the fox's advice, stayed the night at the uninviting and dismal tavern instead of the lively and merry tavern with his brothers. He slept soundly through the night, and as he was about to depart from the village in the morning, the fox came back to greet the young prince. "Now I will tell you where you need to go next," the fox stated. "Go straight on the road from this village until you reach a castle. It will be guarded by soldiers, but pay them no mind, for they will be asleep when you arrive. The entire castle will be asleep. Simply walk past them and search the castle until you come to the room with the golden bird. The bird will be in a plain wooden cage, while a rich wire cage of gold will be to the side. Do not take the bird from the wooden cage to put in the golden cage, or it will go badly for you." With this, the fox offered his tail to the prince, who sat upon it as before. The animal whisked away the young man, bounding over brush, with the wind whistling in their ears. He stopped before coming to the castle and let the prince off before retreating into the forest. The prince continued down the road until he came upon the castle of which the fox spoke, and, just as the clever animal stated, the gate was indeed guarded by slumbering soldiers. As he entered the castle and searched the rooms, he found the entire castle was indeed asleep, just as the fox predicted. The young prince came upon the golden bird in the last room of the castle. Beside the bird, he spied 3 golden apples from his father's tree, and the gilded cage the fox warned against using. However, the prince felt that keeping such a beautiful bird in such a plain and ugly cage would be punishment for it. So he opened the cage and grabbed the bird. But as he was about to put the bird in the gilded cage, it began to squawk so loudly that everyone in the castle awoke to find the young man with the bird in his hand. The prince was promptly arrested and given the choice between death or service to the king. The prince chose the latter. "In order for you to earn clemency," the king of this castle proclaimed, "I hereby order you to bring me the golden horse that runs more swiftly than the wind. Should you complete this task, I will grant you the golden bird as a reward." The prince left the castle with a heavy heart, for he believed the task to be impossible. But then he saw his friend the fox on the side of the road. "Now you see," This misfortune befell you because you did not listen to me," the fox plainly stated. "But be of good cheer, for I will help you acquire the golden horse. You must go straight to the next castle. This one will have a stable dedicated to the golden horse itself. Many grooms live in this stable with the horse, but they will be asleep when you arrive. You will be able to quietly lead the horse away. Near the horse you will find 2 saddles, one of bright gold and one of plain leather. Take care to use the plain leather saddle, or it will go badly for you. Now sit on my tail so that you may get there all the faster." The prince sat on the fox's outstretched tail, and the fox rushed through the forest with such haste that the wind whistled in their ears once more. When they came close to the destination, the fox let the young man off his tail before returning to the forest once more. The young man continued straight down the road and came upon the castle with a large stable. When he went inside, he discovered all of the grooms sleeping just as the fox predicted. He crept to the stall in which the golden horse resided, and spied the 2 saddles next to it. Surely the horse would prefer the bright golden saddle, as it would look so exquisite on him, the prince thought to himself as he disregarded the fox's advice once more. No sooner had the heavy golden saddle touched its back than the horse began to whinny so loudly that all the grooms awoke and captured the prince. He was thrown into prison, where he was once again given the choice between death or service to the king who owned the horse. "If you bring me the princess of the golden castle," the king proclaimed, "then not only will you be granted life, but the golden horse as well." The prince agreed to these terms and left the castle with a heavy heart. Luckily, his friend the fox was waiting to greet him, even though he looked quite vexed. "I ought to leave you to your own ill fortune," the fox sighed, "but I do feel sorry for you. So I will help you once more. Down this road lies the golden castle, where a beautiful princess lives. When you arrive in the evening, you must make your way to the prince's private bathhouse and wait until night. That is when the princess will take her bath, and she will be all alone. Before she enters her bathhouse, kiss her on the cheek and she will follow you. But do not allow her to take leave of her parents, or else it will go very badly for you. Hop on my tail so you may get there in time." The prince sat upon the fox's tail once more, and the fox quickly carried him down the road. They left with such speed that the wind once more whistled in their ears. The pair arrived at the gate of the golden castle as evening fell, and all was still. The fox darted back into the woods as the prince made his way to the princess's bathhouse. When night came, the princess made her way to the bathhouse alone, just as the fox predicted. When she got to the door, the young prince walked up to the young woman and kissed her. With that, the prince led her through the castle towards the gate. However, the princess pleaded with him all the way to let her take leave of her parents. At first the prince refused her request, remembering the fox's advice, but her pleas became more frequent and pitiful. The young man soon gave in. The princess thanked the prince and ran to her parents' bedroom, as they were asleep at the time, to take her leave of them. However, once her father awoke, he immediately ordered his guards to arrest the prince and throw him into prison. Once again, the prince was given the choice between death or service to the king.
Your life shall be forfeit, but I will grant you clemency under one condition.
the king of the golden castle proclaimed.
If you can level the mountain over which I am unable to see, in no more than 8 days, not only will I grant you your life, but you may also have my daughter's hand.
The young prince agreed to the terms and desperately set about leveling the mountain. He dug for 7 days straight, and upon the 7th night he wept for how little he was able to complete. Fortunately, his friend, the fox, heard his weeping and appeared to the prince once more.
Even though you don't deserve it, the fox grumbled, I will help you once more. Go to sleep, and I will complete this task with my own power.
When the young man awoke on the morning of the 8th day, he looked out to where the mountain stood and saw that it was leveled. With joyful tears, he brought the news to the king, and he, being a man of his word, let the prince take the princess's hand and leave with her. As the two of them left the golden castle, the fox came to greet them.
Now you have the princess, he stated, but you must know that the golden horse belongs to her.
Then how shall I acquire it? The prince asked.
Let me tell you. First, you must go to the king who sent you to the golden castle and show him the princess. There will be much rejoicing, and they will bring the horse to you. Mount the horse, and extend your hand to everyone there to take leave, but save the princess for last. When you come to her, take her hand, and you will be able to swing her up on the horse and ride off with her. No one will be able to catch you, because the horse is swifter than the wind.
The prince followed the fox's advice to the letter, and accomplished the task with ease. The fox came with them on the horse.
Now for the golden bird. When you draw near to the castle in which it resides, let the princess off the horse with me, and I will watch over her, the fox instructed. Then ride the horse into the castle yard and stay on the horse. There will be much rejoicing when they see it, and the golden bird will be brought to you in its cage. When you have it in hand, ride off with both the horse and the bird and come meet us.
Once more the prince followed the fox's advice, and he met the fox and the princess with the bird in tow.
Now, what would you give me for a reward? The fox inquired.
What would you desire? The prince offered.
When we pass through the wood, I desire for you to slay me and cut off my head and paws.
I do not know why you would desire such a thing, the young man responded. And I could not possibly do as such to you.
If you cannot grant me this, then I will leave you, the fox stated. But before I go, I will give you good advice. Do not purchase gallows meat, and do not sit upon a brookside.
The fox promptly ran into the wood. What singular ideas this wonderful animal has, the prince thought to himself as he rode away with the princess. How could one even purchase gallows meat? I also have no desire to sit on a brookside anyway. As they rode to the princess's home, they came upon the village in which his brother stayed. There was a noisy crowd that gathered about, and when he inquired upon it, the prince was told that 2 men were to be hanged. As he drew closer to the center of the commotion in the village, he discovered that the 2 men who were to be hanged were his own brothers. They were sentenced to this punishment after playing a great many evil tricks, and they were unable to pay any reparation, as they had wasted all of their own funds.
Is there no way of setting them free?
The young prince pleaded with the villagers.
Only if you buy 'em off, the people replied. But why would you spend your money to redeem such men? The young prince persisted in paying for the lives of his brothers when when the older princes were released, the group set out on the journey home. When they came to the same area as when the three brothers each met the fox, they found it cool and shaded from the hot sun. Let us rest here, where the brook is nearby, the brothers suggested. We should eat and drink so that we may be refreshed. The younger brother, having forgotten the fox's advice, agreed, and his brothers prepared a place for him that would have his back facing the brook. Just as the unsuspecting prince sat in that spot, his brothers wickedly flung him into the brook and absconded with the bird, the horse, and the princess. Upon their return to the father's castle, the two elder princes announced, "We have found the golden bird, and we also bring the golden horse who is swifter than the wind, and the beautiful princess from the golden castle." There was much rejoicing in the castle, but for an unknown reason. The bird would not chirp or sing, the horse would not eat, and the princess would do nothing but weep. However, the prince was alive and the prince was alive, for the brook was dry, and its bed was covered in soft plush moss, but he was unable to get up from the spot in which he landed. Fortunately, his friend the fox came to his aid. After scolding him for not following his good advice, the fox extended his tail. "I still cannot, in good consciousness, leave you here," he sighed. "Grab onto my tail and I will pull you out." The prince did as he was told, and the fox pulled him out of the brook. "You are still in danger, as your brothers are not certain of your demise," the fox warned. "They have placed sentinels around the forest and ordered them to slay you on sight." Luckily, a beggar man rested himself nearby, and the young prince was able to trade his clothes for the beggar's. He then walked out of the forest safely disguised as the beggar and slipped into his father's castle courtyard. The moment the young prince set foot in the courtyard, even though no one in the castle recognized him in his disguise, the golden bird began to chirp and sing, the horse began to feed, and the princess ceased her weeping. "What does this all mean?" the king asked the princess. "I am unsure," she replied. "I only know that before I was sad, but now I am joyful. It is as if my rightful bridegroom has returned to me." The princess then told the king what had transpired between the three princes. Despite the older prince's threat to execute her if she so much as uttered a word about anything that they had done. The king ordered all the people in the castle to gather into the courtyard. Everyone, including the young prince who was still disguised as a beggar, complied with this order without hesitation. The princess immediately recognized the young prince as her bridegroom, and she ran into his arms and kissed him. Then the wicked brothers were seized and sentenced to death for their actions, after which the prince and princess were married. After the wedding, the prince returned to the wood where he had first met the fox, and found the animal waiting for him there. "Now you have everything, but my misfortune continues," the fox informed. It is within your power to free me from it. I ask you once more to slay me and cut off my head and paws." At last the prince consented, and as soon as the grisly task was completed, a man stood in the fox's place
and he was alive and well. This man was brother to the princess from the golden castle, and he was under a spell that had trapped him in the form of a fox. From then on, all who deserved it would lack nothing in their happiness for the rest of their lives. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story. I actually had to write it into my own words, as the version I was planning on using had too many confusing word choices for my taste. I may just employ this method to future Grimm stories as well as all versions in English are either direct translations from the original German, or they are a version of an English translation anyway. I am planning on making a video on the thoughts that I have on this story, because I do have a few. However, I do still enjoy this story. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, you can reach out to me either through the comments on this video, or tweet me at wackadoodle using hashtag reading and crocheting. I hope you stop by for the next video, but until then, have a lovely day.